Hi, welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
Who are you?
I'm Will.
Will's here, everybody.
New guest.
New guest.
Woo! Achievement.
Will, from whence do you hail?
I feel like I know how to answer that question.
Right.
Well, let's see. We know each other from college. I live in Rumford. It's exciting. Just kidding. It's not exciting at all. It might be worse than Trumpville.
Oh boy. Yeah, Lisbon.
Bringing it back. Bringing it back.
Now that we have you here, I'm going to pin you down. Ben and I were both executive members, what do you call us? Of Film Club. We could never pin you down. Why couldn't we get you in Film Club,
were
Will?
You not a Film Club member when we were all...
What else did you have going on in college?
It's funny because, I was in it. I attended at least 3 meetings.
I might dispute
you showed
that,
up for the free chicken.
No, that was the day I couldn't go.
Oh.
And I was really bummed because it's like, oh man, there's going to be free chicken there. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pass that up. No, I remember going to the Oscar party.
Yep.
And then winning a copy of that Terrence Malick movie.
The Tree of Life?
Tree of Life, yeah.
It's
and
a
I was
movie.
like, it was funny because it was the last one picked, and I was like, I got 7th pick. It's going to be there. And I won.
You know what wasn't good? The movie that I won, Green Hornet.
Oh, man. Oh, my God.
Yeah, right?
Coincidence.
Did that get an Oscar nomination?
No, that was just like a...
It was just...
I don't know.
Did we find a copy of Green Hornet on the street?
I don't remember.
And decide to give it away at the
Seth
Oscar
Rogen
party?
was like handing them out.
I
on
do
the
know
corner.
that you missed some really great opportunities to embezzle some things for yourself.
Hey, we
That's
can't
true.
talk about this on air.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
Litigation. We cannot talk about this over the airwaves.
But yeah, thank you for joining us.
For sure.
We had to have you. Today we're talking about Kevin Smith, a couple Kevin Smith films. You're one of our go-to Kevin Smith guys.
Which seems ironic.
Which now we like you less because of that. Before we thought it would be a good idea.
Well,
Kevin Smith, he's kind of like Quentin Tarantino. We'll do a series about him.
Yeah.
That's like one thing that I feel like I need to say before we start this. Like, this is what, like episode 12, I think,
11,
or something?
12. No, yeah, it's 12.
I kind of viewed the first 10 episodes of our show as like a season. And then I was thinking like, okay, so now we can start recycling some of those ideas and doing like a second part. And before I chose Quentin Tarantino as a director to focus on because I really like his film. And I thought like, well, Kevin Smith is one of my other favorite directors. So now let's focus on him, and this will be like the season 2 ongoing movie thing. And like when we watch Tarantino films, I feel like I liked each one more than I ever have before.
Yeah.
Now that I got to like talk about it and work through it, and now I am fucking miserable that I just watched Clerks and Mallrats like back to back.
Yeah. You didn't even finish more.
Yeah. I didn't even get a chance to finish, and that was like the 3rd time I've sat down to watch it too. And but I've seen it like that's like I think that was about the 5th time I've watched it.
And
so
you got right up to the end.
yeah, and this show is only an hour and a half or so long. So
Yeah.
You get to the game show part.
just kidding, it's 6
that
hours
counts.
long. Will, you're trapped.
Oh,
That's usually how it goes.
Please help.
So before we get into that though,
Yeah.
what have you been up to for 2 weeks, Ben?
Oh, what have I been up to? Well, I'm on the ballot for school committee in Lewiston in November.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
We're going to see like lawn picket signs with your name on it now.
Hopefully. I'm going to paper over all the Trump signs with my own.
That are still there.
Yeah, my own signs. Make Lewiston public schools great again. That's my motto.
Make
Are
Lewiston
you?
public
Do
again.
you support the merger
No.
between? I don't know enough about it. I just work in Lewiston.
Here's what I've been saying, because I have gotten asked that question when I was going around collecting signatures, and the thing that I say is like the benefits of it do not outweigh the possible risks, and don't outweigh the like just doing nothing. The benefits are not strong enough to make it worth doing.
Yeah.
They aren't there, but there are also some possible drawbacks, and it's possible that the benefits are not as like big as people say they're going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know anything about it. Lisbon Falls, baby.
Yep.
That moxie runs thick here. That's all I got to worry about.
Rumford just has mill stink, and I assume politics will exist.
Do you hate yourself for getting used to the smell of mill stink?
You know, it's funny. My sister used to live in Westbrook, and that was also a mill stink town. And life has gotten better, I think, technically in both of these places in regards to smell. I can say Westbrook probably is a better place to live than Rumford is.
Okay, all right.
That's
getting political.
Marginally better. I work there now, so that
I
counts.
was going to say, our European listeners are going to love this.
Love this
Small town politics.
Yeah. But okay, other than collecting signatures, I have been enjoying some media.
There you go.
Did I talk about Riverdale last time I was on this show?
Briefly.
The Archie comics.
You said you had started
one.
it.
Yeah, I think.
CW show?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Dude, it rules. That show's really good. It's good, right? It's not great, but it is consistently pretty good.
Cool.
What I love about it is that I love Archie comics, right? Will, are you an Archie comics fan?
To be honest with you, don't remember the last time I read one.
Okay, all right. Have you read them in the past? Maybe. Okay.
Maybe
all right.
on accident.
You know what? I think a lot of people.
That's how everybody finds them, buddy.
It's like, hey, what's this? I'm bored in the grocery store checkout line. This
Exactly.
is a digest. This book is huge.
It's like, is that Garfield? Damn, no, it's not.
I guess I'll try it out anyway.
Brutal.
And Curtis, you are a reader.
I am,
You are
yes.
an Archie Comics reader. The reimagining that they've done is really great. Like, Jughead is like a homeless teen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Archie
How's he get the burgers if he has no money?
He mentions burgers like one time, dude.
Wow. I'm offended.
Well, but the thing about Jughead in the comics was that burgers, to me, represented like food that he happened upon in the comics. He was not going out and getting burgers habitually. He was going out and finding people who were willing to give him burgers. So burgers represented the writers of Archie Comics saying like, all right, we want this dude to have like a food thing, but we don't want to have to think up new foods for him to get every time he goes out and like scavenges some food.
Right.
It's just burgers all the time. Big old stacks of burgers. Burgers upon burgers. So it's a real change from the way the Archie comics were, but I think that it is a healthy evolution.
Spiritually, it's there.
Spiritually, it is there, and it is so different textually that the fact that some of the subtextual stuff is so similar and resonant with what the Archie comics were doing. It's really, really interesting. Really fun to watch. I highly recommend it. Other than that, I started playing a video game called Prey. Prey.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a BioShock kind of game where it's like a System Shock or like a Dishonored sort of, made by Arcane Studios, who have also done Dishonored. It is really good. I think it actually fulfills the promise of BioShock. Like, I remember watching commercials for BioShock and trailers for BioShock and thinking it was going to be this game about like exploring a wide open environment and just following your nose in different directions. And it ended up being kind of a linear set of levels, and the levels were good, but you had like, I'm not expressing myself very clearly right now because I haven't played BioShock in a long time, but BioShock disappointed me. I felt like the scares were not consistent enough. Mm-hmm. I felt like the level design was not... It started really well, but it didn't continue in that same vein.
Yeah.
Prey, like I said, is the BioShock that I wanted BioShock to be. It's consistently scary. It gets really creative. It encourages you to use very creative solutions to problems. You've got a big old tool belt, all your different weapons. And yeah, it's a great game. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. Mostly signatures, though. What about you, Curtis?
Well, after our last episode where we heavily discussed my favorite game of all time, I needed me some Fallout in my life. So I got back into Fallout 4 a little bit. Still not satisfied. As much as I try to like Fallout 4, I can't play it for more than like a couple hours before I'm like, it's not New Vegas, get it away from me. And then, because that wasn't satisfying, I hopped on Steam and I was like, I wonder how much like the first Fallout game is. And coincidentally, it was the last day, like there was like 6 hours remaining on a sale of a $5 bundle of 1-2 Tactics and maybe another one of the other RTS ones. So I bought it and I played like Fallout 1 for a couple hours. Still don't like it.
You played it for a couple hours though.
Yeah.
Like, how far did you get?
Not too far. I got doing some missions in Shady Sands, and then that was about it. You know what it is, though, for me? It's like, I feel like it's so slow-paced, and maybe it just starts that way, but you just have, like, your knife, and you're swinging it at rad scorpions, and it's like, you missed. You missed. You missed. You're out of action points. And then the scorpion attacks you a couple times and misses, and then you hit one of your 3 hits, and you do, like, 7 damage, and it has, like, 30 damage, and you're like, we're gonna be here all day. Yeah. And I can't do that. So, continuing that path, I was like, I'm going to try to learn how to mod New Vegas, and I was, like, starting to do some research about that, and I have, like, I don't know. I would sound dumb to try to describe what I have done, because I don't know enough about modding, but I got some mods, and I turned some on, and I figured out enough to make New Vegas crash every time I load it.
You figured out how to break New Vegas.
Yeah.
You installed the Break New Vegas mod.
So now I'm looking at some software that I guess, like, prioritizes your mods. I don't know.
Yeah, like a load order manager. Yeah. If you try to load mods in the wrong order, they'll fuck with each other and fuck with the main game. It's crazy.
So that was about it for that. I also last time mentioned that I had started watching a YouTube channel, SummoningSalts, that does like a history of speedrunning games. And a lot of the games, like the Mario games he talks about, there was a particular speedrunner. It goes by Darbian. That's probably like the common name if people are into speedrunning. I don't even know if it's whatever. So I started actually watching his channel because he does some pretty fascinating speedrunning, especially from a person who really likes Mario anyway. He completed a challenge where using glitches, he beat 6 Mario games in 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. So he beat 1 Lost Levels, 2, 3... World and Super Mario 64 in 1 hour using different exploitive glitches. And that's pretty fascinating to watch. So I've just been watching different videos by him. And the last thing that I've been doing is Martin Shkreli, Farmer Bro, Wu-Tang guy. He's trying to auction off his one-of-a-kind Wu-Tang Clan album. And I still, every time something about that comes up, I'm just sent into a blind fury about the whole... Because it's been like 3 years of like that type shit regarding Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. And the other day I was bored at work and I felt obligated. I'm like, I should make a fucking timeline just so I can like an outline for an essay. Just so I can like keep this shit straight. Like maybe I should actually write a fucking article just to like explain to the world how much bullshit this is and why we shouldn't even want to listen to that fucking album in the first place.
Yep.
But that's about it. Now I'm just in a bad mood. Sorry, you guys gotta go.
Just dropping
I'm gonna work on this timeline I've been talking about. That's it for me though. So Will, what as far as like media and stuff, what are some of your favorite things to get into? We do currently, but where you've never been here before, you can talk about your all-time favorites.
Yeah, so I know that you guys sort of already did like your Tarantino binge and like that stuff.
We're always happy to continue.
I was gonna say that's like my wheelhouse. So, but no, yeah, I mean I go to the movies pretty regularly. Maybe not so much recently with school having starting back up, but I'm trying to remember like the last couple of movies that I saw. Like I remember seeing Dunkirk. What
did you think of Dunkirk?
Dunkirk was solid.
I didn't see it.
I wanted to see it though. It's like a Redbox movie for me.
It was cool. It definitely feels like a Christopher Nolan movie in like his ability to just like screw with how we perceive time in something that is like so linear as like this pivotal moment in World War II. The coolest thing I think is really a lot of the cinematography stuff that comes out of that movie, like watching people like drown in a sinking ship, but the water comes at them sideways as opposed to like either rising or like them sort of descending into the water. That's just like some really cool effects that he did. Aside from that, like Atomic Blonde was great, aka like Charlize Theron does John Wick. That was pretty dope.
Did you see Baby Driver?
I loved Baby Driver.
Yeah?
Yeah, Baby Driver was so good. So good.
I was tremendously disappointed.
Oh
in
my
Baby
god,
Driver.
why?
Yeah. Well, what did you love about it? I think I already talked about what I didn't really like
Sure,
about
okay.
it on the podcast. But,
well, I think...
No, that's not fair to you, but...
no, that's okay.
you listened,
right.
of course.
No. Sort of like... obviously, there's sort of like I guess like a niche market of using music... sort of obviously in conjunction with the film, but like watching the music play its own part in the plot is just like sort of like auditorily satisfying. And like the soundtrack obviously is great, which I think like 99% of people have said about that movie, being like its biggest strength. I think maybe the unsung heroes of that movie are the supporting goons, like the John Hamms and the Jamie Foxxes and
it's very well acted.
Kevin Spacey, right? Yeah. Obviously, the biggest disappointment that I'm sure anybody could harp on is like the borderline plot twist of Kevin Spacey, like right at the end of that movie, just being like, okay, let's move the plot along so that
I always believed in you, Baby Driver.
Right, exactly, yeah. But yeah, anyway, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, no, I got to see that this summer also while working in Farmington. So aside from that, like, I mean, I inhale a lot of sports that barely counts as media, but recently, like we were talking about earlier before the show, like bought an $1,100 computer, purely for like Magic the Gathering purposes. But
okay, explain that.
Yeah.
I don't even care. I'm just on board now. Before
Yeah,
I was like, that's a lot of money.
Take a paper card game that I also play, turn the cards digital, and then make you spend more money for the cards that you own in person but not online, and then you have Magic online. Yeah, it's
$1,100.
It's a money thing.
Why does that? Is it a very graphically complex game?
No, not remotely. I
You just like to go fucking hard. Right?
I do.
No half-stepping for Will.
It's true. Well, the goal was that like I wanted to be like one of those would-be like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy a computer and start streaming the video games online on Twitch and stuff.
Been there.
Yeah, and just like wanting to do that, and I was like, that just seems like a fun thing. Add it to my like repertoire of hobbies. And so, like, I wanted to do that, and then I happened to have the money, and I did it. And so now we're backpedaling and hoping that my bank account recovers. But aside from that, like, I mean, I got Steam, which is the first time for me getting that. So.
I recently got that for the first time. It's come out maybe a year or so ago now, but
you got it for Stardew Valley.
Yeah, solely for Stardew Valley.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Worth it.
I know, like. Obviously, with Steam being able to be having access to like all of these like great games for like pure nostalgia value, like you can download Final Fantasy VII, and I'm like, hold the phone,
yeah.
Like this is real, like oh my god, it's great. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, you might not want to.
I'm sure that's true.
It's very appropriate for this episode.
Sure,
Final Fantasy VII.
Right? I know. Well,
having been through that emotional roller coaster already,
I believe it. Well, it's funny too because like. When they announced that they were, remastering, whatever you want to call it.
Oh shit! I forgot they were
Final Fantasy VII for the PS4. I was like, I guess I'm buying a PS4 now. And then that was 2 Christmases ago, and I still don't have Final Fantasy.
Never gonna come out.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the video games are great. I just don't play them a lot. Is the other part of that.
Yeah.
I also haven't been able to binge Netflix in a while. Watching Game of Thrones. Or I watched a Game of Thrones now that the season is over.
What did you think of this season?
Lackluster. Maybe purely because of how rushed it is.
Yeah.
And feeling like they have to fit all of this stuff like in this order, and then you've got like timeline jumps and shit like that, and then you've got like all of the internet conspiracy theorists being like, it's because Bran is remembering, and then you're like, okay, I'll listen to you now, I guess. But Game of Thrones is great. The last real binge that we did though was we watched every season of X-Files.
Whoa.
Fuck yeah.
And that was and that was ill. So, and we also watched Westworld.
Yeah,
which is great. So when we went, and even so, when we went to Boston Comic-Con last month, my fiance and I we cosplayed as Bernard and Dolores, respectively.
There you go.
It was wonderful.
I had been like binging X-Files maybe like last summer, and where I approached it, it was just like I'm a huge Twilight Zone fan, and I felt like compared to Twilight Zone, X-Files was like, oh, this is like a grimy, like a, I don't really know, grimy is the only word I can think of, but kind of an equivalent to binging that. I was like, oh, sci-fi, horror, cool. The thing about it is, like, there are certain episodes that I liked a lot, and like any of them that are like continuing the ongoing story of like alien abduction and what happened to Mulder's, is it Mulder or Scully?
Scully's sister.
Mulder's sister.
Mulder's sister
And
were
Scully's
fascinating to me because I love alien abduction stuff. But then I found myself like tediously plugging through the like Monster of the Week episodes and stuff, and I felt like it was a really good, maybe if I didn't binge it and I'd watched it once a week for 9 years or whatever, it might have been a little bit easier to handle, but I just felt like it was such a variety of topics in one show. It was really hard for me to keep on board with.
I've always been a huge fan of like classic like monster movies. Anything from like the classic stuff, like old Dracula, Wolfman,
Your Universal.
Yeah,
monsters,
right, exactly. All the way up to like your like shitty sci-fi movies. Yeah. Those are brilliant.
All the way up to Tusk.
All the way up to Tusk. I know that'll be its own episode, I'm sure. But yeah, like just knowing that like when you're watching X-Files, obviously you get the sort of like the classic science fiction feel, sort of a la Twilight Zone, like you were just saying. But like it's also just cool like knowing that you have like a Monster of the Week sometimes, and like that's just a cool feel. Like watching Mulder and Scully like romp through some trees and like, oh my god, it's Chupacabra. Like, it's hilarious.
You just missed it.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
Or there's like the Loch Ness Monster episode, and it's just like, oh, it's just a giant gator, and then like the camera pans up, and it's, oh my god, it just went below the water. And you're like, oh my god, it's out there. Yes.
Is it weird watching the X-Files in the modern day now that conspiracy theorists run the world? Is that an odd experience?
Just everyone is Mulder now.
Yeah, you can talk to 1,000 Mulders on the internet if you want to, and you can do it all day, and you can do way too much of it, and you can try to talk to people about it.
They just want to believe, Ben.
Yeah, I just want to believe in the Jewish globalist conspiracy. Well, they sure do.
That's true.
All right, so let's use that as a way to get into.
Let's make sure Ben doesn't talk about the alt-right for 15 minutes. I've also still been doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we get into part 3 of our alt-right segment of Ben and Curt till it hurts.
What's happening with the alt-right this week?
Let's get into Clerks and Mallrats, our Kevin Smith movies that we're focusing on this week. So, I think it's safe to say we all thought we were going to like these movies more than we did.
And I didn't even think I was going to like them that much.
When's the last time... Alright, Ben, when's the last time you watched Clerks and Mallrats?
I watched Clerks. Well, I have a bit of a torrid history with Clerks, as I informed you guys before the podcast, but I'm not going to go into that. Probably the last time I watched Clerks would have been maybe about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think I've watched it since I attended college.
Okay. Mine was a little more recent. I was probably 23. So I'm 20. I'm almost 28 now. So it was 5 years ago. I was just out of college and like really binging on a lot of Kevin Smith and stuff like that at the time. What about you?
So like I'm pretty sure I watched Clerks probably somewhere between entering or exiting 8th grade, entering 9th grade.
Okay.
So you were in the prime zone to enjoy Clerks.
It was prime time. When Comedy Central is airing great films of the hour at the 1 a.m. hour. And,
wasn't that a magical time to be alive?
And Will is still awake.
Yeah.
Oh, Clerks got watched. So between that and then when preparing for the episode, watching Mallrats, I realized, crap, I guess I've never seen this movie. And so I watched that 2 days ago.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah. Mallrats, I watched, I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago. I never kept up with Mallrats.
I watched it in that same... I watched, up to that point, every Kevin Smith movie, and I'm pretty sure listened to the commentary of every Kevin Smith movie. I was deep on the
commentaries.
And I actually, not that it matters so much, but I also have 4 of the Evening with Kevin Smith DVDs, because I was super into those.
That's great.
But I still... The hardest thing about those, the 2 hardest things about those, is everyone gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it's like this weird pseudo stand-up comedy more than a Q&A. He answers less questions than everyone, and to the point where the 4th one, it's a 2-hour thing of somebody asking him one question. It's somebody asks, what was it like to work with Bruce Willis? And you get a 2-hour cut of a 4-hour answer to that question. I swear to God. If my memory serves me correctly, that was how that Q&A went. But anyway, so I had watched it then.
Well, it's kind of funny that you mentioned this long, drawn-out bit with Kevin Smith, at least in the past. When I got a chance to see his comedy show at the con with Jason Mewes.
That just makes me cringe. I've never seen it, so
That's
can't
the thing.
say that.
It was actually pretty great.
Was it?
It was very funny. I enjoyed it anyway.
Jason Mewes is, it's a coincidental name because he literally is Kevin Smith's muse.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah,
He's the best part of
it's true.
These
well,
movies.
I think Kevin Smith actually tweeted out last night. I guess he attended this roast for Brian O'Halloran, and he was just basically like, I know.
the most normal, boring guy in the world.
Well, it was just so great because and so Smith just goes on this tear about how it was so great to cast Brian O'Halloran in the original Clerks, and basically just Dante is him and he is Dante, and just this long-winded, most Kevin Smith explanation you've ever seen. But like I said, it was also great. Seeing them, I guess, in person, and they just go out on these long tangents, purely based on, I assume, is Jason Mewes has a notebook that he carries around with them, and then they just point to a word, and that's their mode of inspiration for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
The con closed at 9 p.m. so the show could start at 9. And it was supposed to be 45 minutes, and it didn't get out until 11.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start with Clerks, right?
Yeah.
And Ben, you had said that it would be good to talk about some positives before we
first,
start.
I want us to say what we like about this movie before we say the rest of what we think.
So what did you like about it?
I think the music is righteous. I think that Jason Mewes is a delight. Jason Mewes is just fun to watch. I would have watched Just Jay for 2 hours.
Just dancing in front of the quick.
Yeah, exactly. Just I'll fuck anything that moves. He's hilarious. He's a hilarious person.
He's a great dude.
And as I understand it, that was just him acting like himself.
Oh, totally. Yeah. He is never not Jay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Even in real life.
And I think that it kind of finds its footing at the end, and there's one good scene in it.
Yeah.
And it's the last scene of the movie, and then the movie ends. And I think that's all my... Scott Mosier's also good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes, that's true.
Snowball and the angry customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classic.
But those are my positives. What about you guys?
Will?
Okay. Let's see. Perhaps it could have been gathered earlier when I was talking about nostalgia. I am a sucker for it. So, and this is completely unrelated to Kevin Smith, but, man, seeing Jurassic World in the theater, I was just, losing my shit. because I just, like, suddenly just devolved into, like, my 8-year-old self.
Yeah.
I can feel that when I watch, like, sort of sequentially every other Kevin Smith movie. And, like, but the difference here is that, like, he feels it for himself. He's just like, man, remember that time I, like, made that great movie? It's called Clerks. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Like, I could feel that. And, like, weirdly enough, I sympathize with him a little bit. So, like, again, for nostalgia's sake, I like seeing filmmakers that I enjoy, like, going back and seeing their first movie and just kind of seeing, like, you know, what started it all. The difference here is that, like, as you watch more of Kevin Smith's movies not named Tusk, they all just end up being Clerks. And I'm just like, well, I guess it's cool to see, like, the original seed that was planted. Like, that's kind of nice. So,
That's very fair.
Nostalgia value, again. I agree with you, Ben. The music is very cool. A nice, like, you know, like, late teenage angst entering your 20s. Like, why haven't you done anything with your life? Kind of like...
It's grunge music that didn't really hit that hard, so we don't remember it today. So it still feels kind of fresh to me.
Right, nor is it, like, as stereotypical as just, like, playing Nirvana for 90 minutes.
Right.
Christ.
That was one of the things that I liked about it a lot, was it had that grunge and punk, like, soundtrack. It was all very fitting, and there were no, like, oh, that classic 90s song. It makes it feel like those songs are exclusive to that movie, even though they're not.
Kevin Smith, like, found his long lost, like, package of cassette tapes that had been lost in his car, and he's just like, man, like, this got some great tunes on it. Pop it in the.
Okay, there is a story behind the soundtrack, though. Have any of you guys, like, looked into the history of Clerks?
5 years ago, I'd watched
history?
all the I'd watched all the
So
Q&As.
I watched all those things, and I watched them over and over again. Again, we talked about this before the podcast. That music was not in the original cut of Clerks.
Oh, really?
I don't believe it was even Kevin Smith's choice. I think that music was purely a studio decision.
Wow, that's
they bought it at the film festival. It was Sundance, right?
I believe so.
They bought it.
That sounds like a pretty... Picturing that movie without Kevin Smith, without music, feels a lot more like Kevin Smith.
I think it had different music.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Or it had no music at all. I can't remember. But either way, the studio, like, bought it, and they said, we got to put some tunes in this thing. You know, we got to put some bankable music in it. Yeah. Not even Kevin Smith's choice.
That's gonna be. I feel like that's gonna be your favorite thing about these movies, being like, actually, that thing you like, nothing to do with Kevin Smith.
Nothing to do with that.
Next, you're going to tell me that Kevin Smith's not even in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, Silent Bob is like a body double the entire time.
Did you have much else that you liked?
Any other positives?
Right. I would also add the Jason Mewes bit of him being just like this charismatic, freaking crazy person. He's just entertaining. And again, I'm going to pound this nostalgia thing into the ground. Hearing the line, try not to suck any more dicks on the way to the parking lot, quintessential, like, you could put that on someone's gravestone and it would just be, it would be pure.
I got no complaints about that line. That line still holds up. That's the funniest line in the movie. That and In a Row? In a Row is also pretty good. That's one of, like, 3 jokes in the movie, though. So... It's almost like you're crawling through a desert and there's an oasis with a sign that says "In a Row" and then another sign that says "Try not to blah blah blah." Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I think, well, now that you kind of ruined the soundtrack thing for me, that was one of the big things I had.
No, that's Death of the Author. The soundtrack is dope. The soundtrack is a good reason. The soundtrack will keep you going through this movie.
I think the biggest thing that I liked about it, there are a couple things. I think that movie really represented a group of people that had never been represented in film before. I think all those grungy, punky 90s things were just one part of that whole slacker generation that hadn't been represented because it seemed boring. Mm-hmm. It seemed like they were just lazy, do-nothings that just hung out at convenience stores. And so that part of it, along with the part that someone said, you can make an entertaining movie about one person's shift at a crappy convenience store. I've worked at one. A lot of crazy things happen. If you combined a few years of crazy shit into one day, it would be a really funny and crazy movie.
Sure.
And I think I really like that about it. I also, along a similar line of people being represented that hadn't been represented before, I think in 2017, nerd culture is just culture. All the nerdy things that you used to be ostracized for liking, everybody either likes them now, or the internet has given you a forum where you can communicate with other people that like them.
Totally.
And I think that makes it harder to appreciate the importance of a real movie, quote unquote real movie, that played in theaters, that talked about Star Wars before the prequels and 20 or 30 years after they had come out. No, not that long.
The first one came out in, 77?
Was it?
So, and then they were like a couple years between.
Yeah, it was like 77, 79, 81.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
So not nearly as far as I thought.
Like
but still
10,
before
10,
the sequels, and it was not a lot of people, I feel like, were talking about that. I don't know, I was like 4 when that movie came out.
Yes.
But it was nice to see those things. People talking about Star Wars, people talking about comic books. And I think that it's nice that it might not seem significant now, but I think to keep in mind that it's really cool that they were talking about those things in a movie is kind of cool. But that's about it. Other than the fact that Jay and Silent Bob are great.
They are.
I won't use the explicit language, but my favorite part in the whole movie is just obviously just Jay going off, but when he says he's gonna put Silent Bob and 2 other guys and blow them like seals, and then he just and then gets up and he's like, I hate guys, I love women. It's just completely unprompted, what are you talking about? Just vamping off of himself.
He's so good. He's so good.
30% of, I think, Clerks and 30% of Mallrats is just Jason Mewes saying a joke, reacting to it, looking at Kevin Smith, aka Silent Bob, having no reaction, and then just continually like he's not getting the validation of his joke, so he just needs to keep going because he's just like a train.
And I think that's exactly right, and especially because I think Jay had mostly ad-libbed a lot of his stuff until Dogma. When Kevin Smith was like, you're going to be working with real actors, you need to memorize your lines. Until then, he kind of was just making things up. And
was he? I don't know that for sure. Okay.
Yeah, when he told him, because who was Alan Rickman? When he told him he'd be working with real actors, he would need to memorize his lines. And Jay actually memorized the whole script, not even other people's, not even his own lines.
That was the story I heard.
So I thought he was really funny. That it was like a seedling, and I actually think that the Jay and Silent Bob in Clerks and the ones in Mallrats are like opposite ends of the Jay and Silent Bob spectrum.
Yes.
And then I think we won't get into Jay and Silent Bob today, Strike Back. But I think that movie, now that I look at it now, really combines those two very different types of characters into a movie that it gives credit to both ends of that.
I think that's probably why I like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back the best of all Kevin Smith movies, because everyone knew it. We were all afraid to admit it, but I think everyone knew that Jay and Silent Bob are the best parts
of these
movies by far.
Easily the best characters because they have the least amount of screen time.
Okay, so how do we even start talking about the flaw? What are the first things you noticed that made you think maybe I don't like this movie?
The acting.
So bad, right?
Yeah, the acting is just dreadful. It's like sub-community theater level. I have enjoyed community theater in the past. Yeah. This was the worst actors of community theater being pulled together with the worst writers of local theater.
And that's fair. Most of the actors were just his friends, and right. I think that there are a lot of just exaggerated motions, just overacting, like when Dante ties his boots and then just like taps them on the floor. It's very like it's like jarring to watch because it's very just like people don't do that. Like you look like you know there's a camera watching you and you're trying to like be cool. That was bad.
Yeah.
I think the weird thing for me, and again, having rewatched Clerks somewhat recently, I'm sort of stuck on and I'm trying to figure out the need for like this sort of like pseudo like vignette style structure that Clerks also has. It's just like title card, large vocabulary word.
Oh man, meaningless vocabulary words.
Yeah.
Words that Kevin Smith, I bet, did not know the meanings of.
Open the dictionary. Paradigm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had that too because
vilification.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Syntax.
Syntax.
Going into that, I knew that those were there, and when I was taking my notes for the show, I was like, I'm actually going to write these down and like try to, I'm going to have to analyze this movie for the podcast. And I got like halfway through, and I was like, that chapter was like 3 minutes long, and I literally have no idea why that word was chosen as like that segment.
Right.
So
it's like he realized that the scenes did not flow into each other, and instead of rewriting the movie so that they did, he decided to turn it into a series of vignettes.
That is what happened. That is so on point.
That's what happened. He may have literally said that himself at some point, and I might just be copying him.
The Kevin Smith sympathizer part of me wants to like conspiracy theorize that like producers post-production were like, we're just gonna put in some title cards with some cool words, or then like, or even better, maybe the movie was in color first and they were like, it needs to be like this grainy artistic, like
not just black and white.
Black and white. It's borderline. I don't even like. It's borderline. You can't see. You see like outlines of Dante as he's like standing behind an outline of a counter, handing out outlines of cigarettes.
Put a coffee filter over the camera. That's like my running joke today. That
your go-to thing is
coffee filters.
Try
are on
it through
today.
a coffee filter. So the acting's bad. What about the directing? What about the direction? Is there any?
I mean,
there's like a shot of a spinning thing at one point that I think is okay.
I mean, I can't see how the directing is bad because the director was standing outside the store the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? He never left. He was always there. He's always firm.
He's a method actor.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that always has irked me about Kevin Smith's role in that movie is that he has said that when people ask him why he wrote himself into the Marcel Marceau character, and he said it's because I'm not a good actor, so if I don't have to say anything, then it's it's just easier for me. But I feel like that is a bullshit cop-out. I feel like he put himself into the most important role because it's the most noticeably different role. And it's true. I mean, everybody loves those movies because they're Jay and Silent Bob movies. Like, they're in them, and by way of him not talking, he always gives himself the most profound, dialogue when he does speak. And at least for me, when I was in middle school and starting to find out what Jay and Silent Bob were, every movie you watch, you're waiting for the one line that Bob speaks.
Yeah. Well,
so I get to get angry when I think about the fact that he plays it like, oh, I'm just a bad actor, so I did that. I'm like, no, you're just
I remember
fucking I get pissed.
I remember in third grade, I was the narrator for my class play, and I was the dude at the end of the play who got to say the moral of this fable is. And so I guess in third grade I didn't know that I was Kevin Smith.
Curtis, you just made me realize that there was a time in my life where I didn't know what Jay and Silent Bob were.
I think I had seen Jay and Silent Bob not knowing anything about that movie had come out, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and it's really funny on a lot of different levels. I'll give it that, weirdly enough, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
I love that movie. I'm actually a little scared to return to it now, though.
No, I'll tell you, for me personally, it still holds up, really funny. The only flaw that I could notice, having seen it a few times, is that it fucking moves right along. It's like ridiculous scene after ridiculous scene.
Is that a
like,
flaw?
You're sent, and it's just like so fast paced. Like you're just sent through this whirlwind of ridiculous shit that it's like, what the fuck is going on?
It's better than Clerks, which moves along at a snail's pace.
That's true.
With characters who, as my wife put it, seem apathetic to the point of mental illness.
I think too,
what's more with art,
with directing this, he must have just taken a notepad and said, what is all the crazy shit that I've seen working in a gas station? And he wrote them down, and then he just like randomly he forced every single one to fit into this movie about nothing. Like it's tough. It's hard to watch.
Well, it's worse. He forced them together into a movie that is about something that is not what those scenes are about. Like, the movie is about losing your sense of purpose as you exit your teenage years because we no longer have any sense of, like, the passage from childhood to adulthood. So you just end up kind of doing the same thing you were doing as a late teenager well into your 20s. I feel like that's what this movie is about, and that's what Clerks 2 is also about.
Yeah.
But the scenes in the movie are not about that. They kind of loosely are gathered around the idea of being an employee.
Yes, that
like
is
the
true.
Death Star thing is about being an employee. The cigarette thing is about being an employee. I think that's kind of the common thread through all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that is maybe not at... It's not even at odds with the theme. It's just unrelated.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know?
I think the fact that... And I almost feel like... you had said... I don't remember if you said it on the show or privately, Ben, but you had said it wasn't until... like the end of the movie that that Kevin Smith realized what type of movie he was trying to make, and it's like at the end a conversation between Dante and Randall where Randall literally has to tell Dante to shit or get off the pot, and you're like, oh, that's what this whole fucking movie is about. Like, you've grown into adult, but you're still living like a teenager, and you're wasting your life. So shit or get off the pot. Okay, like. But as far as exactly like you said, everything else in that movie has nothing to do with shitting or getting off the pot.
Right.
You're just hanging out in a convenience store.
And then like your ex-girlfriend comes back, and like you can tell that a lot of this is something that we got to get into. As a teenager, I had never noticed how much of Kevin Smith's movies are just him working out like his sexual hang-ups.
Yeah.
So much of it is just a glimpse into the private sexual world of Kevin Smith.
Right. I mean, and I think you see that way more in Mallrats than you.
Yeah.
Like that's exclusive to Mallrats.
Oh
at the
my
moment.
God.
Yeah. And you get a little bit more of that in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and a little bit too in Clerks 2.
Yes.
So that is a fair statement.
I have a weird... I don't know. I know. I don't remember what the group was. Glad, right? They came down on Kevin Smith for a while because of his language and approach to sexuality.
Yeah.
Did they?
In his kind of defense of that was, I have no problem with gay people or anyone. I just think that's funny to have in my movies, and I honestly don't know how I feel about his language about that, because so much of his movies are sex or fucking things that are in any combination of fucking things, where I almost feel like he just uses, like, gay subjects as, like, it just adds to the crude, dirty humor. Like, I think he thinks... this might be not where we want to go with this episode.
No, we need to go here.
I think he almost, at least when he was younger, approaches homosexuality with the same lens as dirty humor.
It's middle schoolers sitting around the lunch table.
Yeah,
you know, they're all afraid of being called gay, so they denounce gay people and the idea of gayness in the strongest terms possible, or in the strongest terms available to them at the time,
or embrace it so overwhelmingly that it's like a farce, like it's a parody.
They turn it into something ridiculous.
Sure. Yeah. And on the flip side of that, then you look at the plot of Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
Which is like, man, I could have had that girl. Turned out she was a lesbian.
Yeah.
Like, shucks.
Yeah. I'm conflicted about Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
also the sexuality angle that you mentioned. also completely ignoring the fact that he also made Zack and Miri make porno.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, right, yep, clearly, just more sex things. So this is fun.
That's why Cop Out doesn't feel like a Kevin Smith film.
No
I mean, he
sex
didn't
stuff.
because he didn't write it,
Yeah.
but
True. But you also know, like, Cop Out wasn't its original title.
right, yeah.
It was supposed to be A Couple of Dicks.
A couple of dicks.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
And it seems like he made the decision to direct it based solely on the title, on the original
Absolutely.
title.
And that would be maybe the second most Kevin Smith thing of all time.
What's the first most?
Making Clerks 2, I guess.
Which is literally the same as Clerks 1. Like, it's almost a shot-for-shot fucking Psycho remake.
No, like, where's
Clerks
Gus
1.
Van Sant when you need him?
Yeah.
God, there's a part of me that really, I don't know if now is the best time, but there's a part of me that really wants to talk about Clerks 2 and or Kevin Smith's whole career.
His filmography.
But I don't know.
Well,
if
okay.
we can...
Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do now. Everyone, we're all going to take a quick break, just a minute-long break, to talk about the future of this Kevin Smith series. All right, and we'll let our ideas about how bad Clerks and Mallrats are just stew for a second. What I think we should do is do another episode where we do Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Clerks 2. Because I think Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a good counterpart to Mallrats, and I think Clerks 2 is the same fucking movie as Clerks 1. So I think it will be interesting to see how he took these sort of directorial and authorial threads and developed them later on in his career. And we'll be happy to have you back when we
All day.
when we tackle that
All day.
subject.
tackle that. But that's besides the point.
I'm penciling myself in for the Tusk episode.
Oh my
also.
god. I'm never going to watch Tusk. I'll talk about Tusk.
I'll read the Wikipedia article and make all my assumptions. And
I'll watch
fine.
a couple YouTubes.
Yeah.
I'll watch the movie clips version of Tusk.
Man, I mean, I drove 90 minutes to Waterville
I can't believe that.
because I knew that it was like the only theater in the entire state that was playing Tusk, and I'm like,
That literally hurts my feelings. Like
That you did that.
well, I mean,
that's how I feel about that.
I mean, when you listen to the Walrus and the Carpenter episode of his podcast,
As I did,
Scott
yeah.
Mosier, and you're like, yeah, I don't mind seeing this movie happen. And then when it happened, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. we're gonna roll this. And even better, like, two friends from high school were up visiting. Just like, we're gonna go to the movies, guys. And like,
Oh, God.
my friend Tucker was like the only other one in the group who was like, we need to go see Tusk. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not the only man on this wavelength.
I'm so glad I have a second.
Yes, I have an enabler.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
oh
my god.
I'm trying to think of some other negatives about Clerks. 'Cause they're
I'm trying to figure out which one to talk about next. How about the bit where Caitlin Bree fucks a dead guy in the bathroom?
Yeah.
A scene that makes no sense. Randall literally tells her in the scene prior to that Dante went home to change.
Yeah.
And then she goes into the bathroom and thinks that's Dante. What? That doesn't make any sense. Kevin Smith wrote the Clerks script and apparently never read it again before shooting the film, because that makes no sense. Are we to assume that she was not listening to Randall? Because I don't know, that really bothered me. Because that is a disgusting thing to have happen in your movie.
Yeah.
That's a horrifying thing to have happened to a person.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then especially, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a weak plot hole, but I just feel like, look at those two people. Turn the lights out. You'd be able to fucking tell the difference. I feel like that dude must have... he was a completely different shape than Dante.
Yeah.
Had to have had a different smell. Like, come on. Like, and plus, the dude... I don't know if he was lying about having to take a shit. Maybe he was lying about that just so he could jerk off in the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
But I feel like that... I just can't get in... That whole thing... There's so much in that movie, and that's one of those things that's just a... Fine, we need this to happen for us to go on, so let's just... It doesn't matter if it makes sense.
For some reason, Kevin Smith felt that he had to have that happen in his movie.
Yeah.
to bring it back to your point, Ben, the note of, like, not knowing what movie Kevin Smith was trying to make out of his Kevin Smith movie, he had sort of dropped in all of, like, these micro jokes, obviously, throughout the script, that he just needed this big finale. But then it also sent me, like, some really, like, weird mixed messages, because the entire movie we're like, man, Caitlyn sucks. Like, she's cheating on him with like 90 different dudes and whatever, and yet he is still completely in love with her despite having a whole other girlfriend. And then suddenly it's just like, so it's like, is the punchline like her punishment for like, oh, now this is like vindication, you know, you get to have sex with a dead man in the final 3 minutes of the movie.
God, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, what is that like, what is Smith trying to say in that?
I think he was trying to say, like, isn't this fucked up? Isn't this a fucked up thing?
Well, I hadn't really thought about this until just now, but I almost think maybe when he wrote this, maybe it seems to me that it's like poor writing in the sense that you need like an A plot and a B plot, so you're like, the A plot is shit or get off the pot, the B plot is this list of crazy shit that happens in a convenience store.
Barely a plot.
And that's it. And maybe the fact that it seems like it should be significant because it's climactic, but really it's just the most fucked up thing. Yeah. So maybe that is why he just like kept trying to go like crazier and crazier and crazier with a B plot that did not tie into the A plot at all. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's just bad writing. Maybe that.
Yeah, I think we can land on that.
Yeah.
I think
we can all safely agree on bad writing.
Yeah.
Plus spinning every Kevin Smith plot into like, it's completely like love story centric.
Yeah.
Regardless of what movie you look at.
It's also regardless of the fact that Kevin Smith seems to not have any idea how people talk to each other or like how romance happens.
That's fine.
Why do Caitlyn and Dante like each other?
Yeah.
Like,
Valid.
What is there to like about
They've
Dante?
just spent hours on the phone. That's
that's...
You imagine talking to Dante on the phone for a half hour?
It's a half hour of silence. The man's got nothing to say.
I think, oh god, I get to the
I'm not
point...
even supposed to be here today.
I was just going to say, I get to the point where I stab myself in the neck every time. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
You know
like
what the worst part is? Yeah. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
The worst fucking acting. Oh my god.
I'm sorry, Brian O'Halloran, I know you're listening because you have a Google alert set up.
Yeah.
I am sorry, we're not trying to be mean.
You've gotten better.
I'm sure you're a very nice... Let's not go crazy.
Well,
I'm sure you're a very nice person.
I'll say, maybe he hasn't gotten better, but I'll say he has the fucking sense to not keep coming back and doing it. That is the only reason why there aren't 6 Mallrats, fucking Clerks, and Jane Silent Bob.
You remember that moment in Clerks 2 where he's sitting outside of the people's house and he looks at Kevin Smith's daughter and he gets a really sad look on his face? Oh my god, I can't wait to watch Clerks 2.
You know what was funny too? This is mean.
And the Smashing Pumpkins are playing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Clerks 2 also had a killer soundtrack, by the way.
Yes. And that was Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
He was responsible for that, I think.
I remember when I watched Clerks 2 for the first time, and I kind of saw it, and it's because it's his daughter, is that little kid. And I remember, like, I didn't pick
Harley
up...
Quinn, a name that he picked because it is the name of a comic book character who he's sexually attracted to, I suspect.
Oh. I like the little end of that, I assume, because
Kevin Smith, I know you're listening, I'm sorry.
I've never heard of this theory.
Yeah.
It's just, Harley Quinn's just a very nice name.
People find her attractive?
You had me at Killer Croc.
Yeah. I just remember thinking that, like, that kid was not a very good... Now that we have, like, sexually attracted to his daughter, I don't want to say, just not a cute kid. I remember, like, that's a weird kid to choose for that, because...
I'm not going to go so far as to say that Kevin Smith's daughter was not a cute child. I think that... I think that she was... Listen, because I know that in fucking 5 years, I'm going to have a kid that Kevin Smith can shit all over. You think your kid's so fucking cute, Ben Villeneuve?
Yeah. Kids are just horrifying, I guess. And that's fair. Kids are just horrifying to me. That, I guess, is... It should have been a dog. I don't know how that could have, like, made more sense in the film. Probably
Brian
made less
O'Halloran
sense.
Stares at a goldfish.
But I like dogs a lot.
Scene cuts to black and white. Single tear. Cuts back.
God, this movie was... I remember liking it so much, and that it was... To me, it was such a great movie only held back by the fact that it was his first movie on his own dime.
Yeah.
And now I watch it and I'm like, every other Kevin Smith movie is this movie with a budget, and this one sucks.
I remember wanting to be like Randall Graves as a teenager, which is a horrifying
and you know what,
it makes me think, like, how many years did I waste having him as a role model?
And I always felt, that's funny that we co-host this now, because I always felt like Dante, so
it's really weird.
Maybe it's just those personality
so weird
types.
Fucking between that and the eighth grade edgelord Stephen King thing, like, we've got a lot.
And that we both love Archie comics.
And we both love Archie comics somehow. What's going on here?
The most random shit to have in common.
Like, none of these things have anything to do with each other, except that we both agreed about them when we were middle schoolers.
I fully expect by the next Kevin Smith episode, you will have just, like, dyed this part of your beard, the mustache, just like black mustache goatee combo.
The Dante
like,
look.
Right, pull the full Dante.
I'll be wearing a backwards baseball cap and going like this all the time.
Audio joke.
Yeah. Hey, if you've seen the movie, you know what I was doing.
Yeah, you know what he's doing.
I was doing the Randall.
Doing the Randall.
Will you Randall out the door for me? No, I've grown up.
Yeah. I'm trying to. What else do we have to say before we get into Mallrats?
Characters. Well, this is back to the acting thing. Characters do not speak to each other in this movie. They speak. This movie could have been filmed single actor shots composited together with no input from any other actor. They could have fucking. This movie feels like it was directed by George Lucas circa 1999. It feels like none of the actors were ever in the same room with each other. They are speaking past each other at all times. They are not listening to each other, which I guess comes down to them being amateurs, but is that an excuse for having made a bad movie? I don't know. Look, I get that making a movie is hard, and like I do want to say that having even made a feature film is an achievement.
Especially on your own maxed out credit cards.
On your own maxed out credit cards with, like, didn't his basement got flooded at some point or something? All his comic books got destroyed that he was going to sell to finance the movie. I don't know. I may be misremembering this story, but the production had hardships, and making a complete movie is a big achievement. That does not make Clerks a good movie.
Yeah. I will admit that it's easier to shit on a movie than it is to make one.
It absolutely is.
But I still need to shit on this movie.
As important as it is to say that it is a big achievement that Kevin Smith even made a feature film, it is a terrible movie.
If he were lucky, he would have followed the same path of Tarantino, and his first film would have been Lost.
Yes, like I bet that Lost Tarantino movie is as bad as Clerks.
Yeah,
I bet.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's solid conjecture, I think.
You know. But let's not actually go too crazy. I bet it's not as bad as Clerks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that far, but I bet it's pretty bad. I bet if that was the first thing, if that was the first thing that Tarantino unleashed upon the world, we would not remember him. He would not be in the same position that he is in today.
Clerks is not Reservoir Dogs.
Clerks is definitely not Reservoir Dogs. Kevin Smith has not made a movie as good as Reservoir Dogs.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, rainstorm.
Yeah, it's raining outside. That's why it's so comfortable and not
not balmy in here. Okay, I just want to bitch about Kevin Smith. I'm shifting from bitching about Clerks to bitching about Kevin Smith.
Anything else about if we want to like put a lens on this? Is there anything else we want to say about Clerks before we move into Mallrats? I think Mallrats is a much worse movie. I think it's going to give us a good opportunity to really say some rough stuff about Kevin Smith circa mid-1990s.
I will say I have a few final thoughts on Clerks. I'm sure you guys might as well. That dialogue that feels so forced and awkward through the lens of watching Clerks, where it's in this convenience store on grainy black and white and feels like a shitty movie, confined to those two characters, I buy it. It works. When you have that same dialogue, the same quality of dialogue in Mallrats, in a public setting where characters are supposed to be angry and they're spitting out this really long string of awkward dialogue that nobody would actually use it's so much worse. It's because it feels so much more real as a movie. There's kind of, and not to even remotely give Clerks this much credit, probably mostly because it's black and white, but you know, it's similar, not in quality, but as I think of Eraserhead, where that type of shit works because it's its own world, it's its own little box, and you're looking into it.
God damn, we got to do an Eraserhead episode.
I have nothing to say about Eraserhead.
David Lynch series. David Lynch series. We're going to do a David Lynch series.
Okay.
We're going to watch all of them.
We can do that.
Yeah,
I'll probably commit suicide.
That'll make me happy. Don't.
If I commit suicide, no.
Cut that out.
I think it's okay in Clerks. You can accept it. But in Mallrats, when they want you to view this as like a big budget, real Miramax production,
oh boy,
awful.
Yeah, I actually disagree.
Okay.
I think that Clerks feels like the realer of the two movies, and Mallrats feels like he's trying to imitate a different tone of movie. I think it works. It still does not work in Clerks.
Yeah.
But I think it works a little bit more, just a teeny bit.
I think Clerks is still, I think it would, me being old and not having been young for a while now, I would argue that Clerks still holds up as, if you've worked in a convenience store or in customer service, you should watch it. If you are an edgy 8th grader, you should still watch it, and you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think that it has its place. It just hasn't aged well culturally or as a film on its own.
You know the story of Tulip Fever?
No.
How like all those people in, I think it was in the Netherlands, they all like got obsessed with tulips for a while, because like when you get a tulip bulb, you don't know what's going to come out of it. So it was like it was like they were opening Pokemon card booster packs. But instead of it being trading cards, yeah, exactly. Instead of it being trading cards, they were like trading these tulip bulbs back and forth and coming up with these really incredible looks. But we look back now and it's like they got obsessed with tulips, tulip fever. I think our cultural obsession with Kevin Smith is similar. I think we're going to look back on it and be like, really, him?
Well, and
those movies,
I
those
had
ones
him
that
on
he
par.
made.
Like in my head, I was like, my favorite directors are fucking Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith, John Carpenter. You know, like
he was on that list.
He was in the list.
He was on hallowed ground.
And now,
no,
sir. Like,
no.
Any real positive takeaways from Clerks? Will,
any final words?
Additionally, no. It's funny. I can't remember who said it, but I remember also seeing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back before I saw any other Kevin Smith movies that I'd known of. Shortly after that, I'd seen Dogma, and I was just like, "Yeah, these movies are solid." I just find it so incredibly interesting how exactly polarizing Kevin Smith is, and even more so when we see all of the stuff come out online about, like, you know, his deal with censorship and his like constant arguing with movie critics and things like that. Like, we're doing exactly what he doesn't want, and I mean that's just funny to me. But but I mean I can say that, like, I don't hate Kevin Smith.
Okay, I don't hate Kevin Smith either.
Here, perfect way to describe this. I realized this as I was doing research for this movie. I can no longer say I'm a Kevin Smith fan.
No.
I'm a Kevin Smith sympathizer. I'm an apologist for Kevin Smith.
Yes.
I will defend him beyond the point that I should, but I can't help but see flaws in these movies that I used to adore.
And to be fair, too, like, you can be a fan and see flaws.
Certainly.
I guess that's where I find myself also.
Yeah.
But knowing that he churns out movies still somewhat regularly, I can say as a fan I know which ones to avoid.
Yeah.
Purely based on, like, I will never see Yoga Hosers.
Yeah.
We probably will.
I will.
You're going to be on this show, you will.
At some point, we're gonna have to.
There will be the True North trilogy episode where we can watch Tusk, Yoga Hosers, and Moose Jaws when it comes out, and it's going to be.
God.
I'm going to have to, at the end of this episode, I'm going to have to give my final thoughts on Kevin Smith that I know I shouldn't on this episode.
That's okay.
But I'm going to have to do it. I can't hold it in anymore.
All right. At the end of this episode. Curt's final thoughts.
Bam. Okay.
Oh, man.
Mallrats.
What did you guys like about Mallrats?
Just a deep.
Okay.
What's that? I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Michael Rourke?
Oh, Rooker. Michael Rooker.
Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
Michael Rooker is a good fucking actor.
I love Michael.
That dude knew what kind of movie he was in.
And
I'm willing to reuse that line.
I think
that's the right take on that.
That
character.
It's similar because I know I just said that I like John Carpenter a lot. That I always forget that guy's name, but that actor in Mallrats is similar to Donald Pleasance in Halloween. Like it's all these like new actors, new directors, not great, and they're like, let's just get one really talented actor that's going to help float this movie, and that's his role.
And of course, this
Mallrats.
is also like pre-Ben Affleck.
Right? Yeah.
So.
Who actually is a shining star in that movie to me.
He's in that movie,
such a good shithead goon that I just love him. Like
who plays the main character? Is it
Jason Lee? Is Brody?
No, not Brody. The main guy.
Quinn.
Jeremy London.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something.
Yes.
He's one of the London brothers.
Yes.
Right. He's the bad London brother.
Yeah. That's one of my positives. Actually, is I like Jason Lee in the movie. I think Brody is funny, and I think his shtick works. But watching it as an adult, I'm like, this guy is a fucking shithead. You cannot sympathize with him.
He is much worse a person than I remember.
And at no point in this movie do you root for him to get what he wants, because he's a fucking shithead.
He's horrible.
Yeah, it's bad, but he's pretty funny doing it. Like,
yeah, Jason Lee just has like a certain charisma.
Yeah,
he's.
And that was his first movie, wasn't it? He was just a skateboarder before that.
I believe so. Yeah,
he was a professional skateboarder.
Yeah, before Mallrats.
That's a good piece of trivia.
Yeah,
he seemed like a professional skateboarder in that movie.
Real skeezy piece of shit. He's pulling a J. He's not acting. He's just.
It's like, why'd you suck my dick while I'm playing Sega hockey?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever, man.
Exactly.
That is like. If you were to just like draw a cartoon outline of that character, that would be his one speech bubble. That
about sums him up.
Yeah, it totally does. Let's see, Mallrats, positive Mallrats things. With the exception of the dicks in the parking lot joke of Clerks, I felt that the joke game in Mallrats was like a hair better.
Which the sequence, the scene with
I guess the quality of jokes that appear in Mallrats in comparison to Clerks. You get the same shtick of Jay and Silent Bob. You get a more cartoony version of Jay and Silent Bob,
they are cartoon characters.
They're being chased by a
every
prison guard.
There's a cartoon character.
So many
guard.
grabs to popular culture. Like he has the bat grappling hook. He does the Vulcan nerve pinch. He's just trying to use the Force throughout the movie. It's just
he's got the cowl helmet when he's descending from the rafters, trying to I can't remember, knock LaFours out with a sock full of quarters. Oh my god.
That has 3 quarters in it.
It's give me 75 cents.
Yeah.
But yeah, so quality of jokes, Jay and Silent Bob being continuously great, and I think even more so, that Mallrats sets up Jay and Silent Bob to be better characters for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Definitely, yeah.
And, like, you see, like, the sort of the dichotomy of, like, how they are presented in Clerks as just being, like, these, like, two douches that just...
They're just drug dealers.
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly. And but they're also hilarious because, as we discussed, like, Jason Mewes' like, improv lines, and
he's just an
Kevin
incredible
Smith
presence.
being
you know, the, like, Werner Herzog. Like how he had that one actor who was like just chaotic.
Yeah.
I can't remember his.
What was that?
Some German guy.
Klaus Kinski?
Yeah, Kinski, who is this like whirlwind of like charisma and rage, and like a fascinating looking face, and horrible to people.
Yeah.
Not that Jason Mewes was horrible to people, but Jason Mewes had his flaws. Like he got addicted to drugs for a long time.
Oh, totally.
Seemingly because of the way he is. He's like always
heroin too, like the drug, like
really fucking hard drug. Yeah. And I suspect it's because he just needed to slow his brain down for a little bit.
Or he couldn't stop.
Right.
And was just like, I will continue.
Right. And sometimes you just get like a director and actor pair who know exactly what to do with each other.
Yes,
and in Herzog's case, he knew what to do with Kinski. He knew what he had with Kinski. Whereas I get the sense that Kevin Smith almost knew what he had with Jason Mewes, but he was also too enamored with his own writing, quote-unquote writing ability, to be able to use Jason Mewes properly. He was not comfortable just turning on the camera and letting Jay be Jay for an hour and a half, which is what these movies should have been.
Oh, sure. Right. And, of course, we get that for 2 hours in Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
Is
right.
it?
It's so good.
Do you think it's possible that Kevin Smith might have an extreme knowledge of how to use Jay in that controlled chaos? Like, I can't write for this guy. It's funny when I'm quiet and he goes off. Do you think that's possible?
That's possible, but I really think that it would have been better had he... This is just armchair fucking directing, which is execrable of me to do. But I suspect that we might remember Kevin Smith as more of an artist had he simply shut his writing hand off and structured the whole movie around accentuating Jason Mewes. Make him the focal point. Because he ends up being the focal point no matter what.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is kind of off in the weeds, but I would love to live in a universe where Kevin Smith made that decision instead of the, like, you know what, I've been pretty popular in community theater. I've been a pretty popular figure locally. So why not take this game national? Put it on cinema.
Did you see the Jay and Silent Bob cartoon?
Hell yeah, I did. The Clerks cartoon?
Yeah.
You know
no, not the Clerks cartoon.
Oh.
I feel like I did.
Jay wrote it. He wrote I watched part of it, and it seemed pretty awful, mostly because it had like an animation budget of like $10. So it was just like
MS Paint,
really hard to watch animation, but it's strange to see that these characters that Kevin Smith created. But I almost would think that Kevin Smith must have said either A, I feel bad for my druggy friend, or I like to think, I guess Jay does have just as much of a say about what Jay and Silent Bob would do as I do, because he kind of steers the ship of Jay and Silent Bob. Totally off topic. I don't want to be... We're in the weeds.
Back to Mallrats. Have we all said what we like about Mallrats?
I think...
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
It's fun,
let's move into the bad stuff.
Let's rip it.
Because there's a lot of bad stuff.
Okay. My main bad thing is that none of these characters are people you root for. Like, Brody is such a douche. Like, and then with TS, I have a couple weird things about TS. Is that
why is his name TS?
Yeah.
That's my number one question.
My biggest one is that the whole movie happens because it needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And the fact that in this world, maybe I'm you guys can tell me if I'm just a fucking asshole. If I saw a person I knew that was going to be on TV, and I was like, hey, the camera adds 10 pounds, and then that person swam laps until they had a cardiac arrest and died, I would feel zero guilt about that, because that is a completely normal joke to make about, the camera adds 10 pounds. And then I just feel like that sucks. How should I say this? It sucks that it happens, and TS should feel bad when he doesn't feel bad at all. He should feel bad that it happens, but at the same time, it's weird that everybody else in this universe is kind of like, yeah, it was kind of your fault. I'm like, I don't fucking think that was his fault at all. That was a really weird, unexpected thing that happened from a person who was clearly very troubled.
Sure.
Like,
it's a pretty unique catalyst for like the relationship between TS and what's her name?
Brandy? Yeah.
Brandy, okay. Pretty unique, obviously, to the movie, but even more so, like, and maybe, again, this could be pure conjecture, but, like, you know, we talked about, like, Kevin Smith's ability to just, like, project his own issues with sexuality, but, like, I also know that, like, Kevin Smith also had issues, like, with his own body. Like, is it foreign or unfamiliar to say that it would be, like...
That's a good point.
I wonder.
Again, conspiracy theory away, you know, whatever. But that's an interesting point. It certainly doesn't make him any more likable. That he obviously doesn't feel bad. But like, I think I'm with you, Curt. I don't think it matters that everyone else is just like shunning him 1,000 times every other second about him, like as he should feel guilty.
Okay, here's my main problem with Mallrats. I talked a lot during our Quentin Tarantino series about how one of the great things about Tarantino's writing is that every line is pulling double, triple, quadruple duty. Every single line that he writes, you can dig into it and look and see, all right, what is this telling me about the character? What's this telling me about the scene? What's this telling me about the movie as a whole? Every line that Kevin Smith writes is doing single duty, sometimes less.
Yeah.
Like he's never...
Sometimes completely removable.
Sometimes it's doing nothing.
You could cut Mallrats down to a 30-minute short, and it would probably be funnier.
Yeah, Mallrats is a pilot.
Yeah.
A pilot episode of a show that should never be made.
Mallrats and actually Clerks are like, they're comic books. They're comic book issues, essentially, in terms of the quality of writing. But that he couldn't find an artist who wanted to draw them, so he just filmed them.
Right, and
himself.
even as we talked about with the vignettes too, like of Clerks, it's even pretty episodic anyway.
In Mallrats as well.
Sure, yeah.
Definitely.
The biggest...
He doesn't want to make things connect. He doesn't seem to have a drive to make his movie be cohesive. He has like a pile of ideas,
and like each scene is a new idea.
Yeah, he doesn't pull them together in any meaningful way. He just kind of says, here's this, and then here's this, and here's this. Here's what I think about Star Wars. Here's what I think about malls. Here's a woman with 3 nipples that I'm going to hold on for way...
So long, right?
Way too long.
We were saying that when it was on earlier. Like,
it's pornographic. You guys should have felt uncomfortable watching that together.
I hate to use this, like, buzzword because I feel like this is like the favorite word. Disjointed is like the favorite word online critics use to shit on.
It fits
Batman
Kevin
versus
Smith.
Superman, those fucking pricks.
Fits Kevin Smith to a T.
Mallrats is so disjointed, it feels 6 hours long. That when you came here and I had turned it on, that was my third attempt at finishing that movie once. I didn't even finish it, and I was like, whatever, I've seen it 5 times.
I got to admit, I dozed off for a while I was watching it.
It's hard to fucking watch. I mean, and in so many ways, it's literally Clerks with a budget. Like, it's so hard to, like...
Even the title is just a description of what kinds of people are in the movie.
You're just like, oh, let's focus on another type of people. Oh, we have more money. Let's just choose a type of people that can move around a little bit more. Oh, they're not stuck behind a kiosk. They're just hanging out at the mall. There's lots of shit in malls.
Each store is an episode, even right down to, like, his critique or message about, like, what type of people attend the mall versus... what are the stores in the mall called?
Yeah.
Right? So you have, like, fashionable male...
Now, you know what? I should have mentioned that is something that I liked.
I
liked
that.
how straightforward... It was almost like They Live. It was like someone had put on the fucking sunglasses, and instead of Abercrombie and Fitch, the store is just called Fashionable Male. Like, all the stores are just named after the type of person that they're trying to attract. That was a good idea, Kevin. Kevin, I know you're listening.
Yeah.
That was a good idea. Do more like that.
There's also, what was it? the carpet munchers.
Not such a big fan of
It's
that.
like
more
Kevin, you
weird
shouldn't do that. I know you're listening still because we just praised you.
Avoid saying anything about gay people.
Right, that was,
you don't know how to do it right.
Right, doing it well, and then we cut to wall-to-wall carpeting, and then just here's a ham-fisted joke.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yes. I think this is. I don't want to go off too far, but the thing about those types of jokes is I don't know how. It's hard for me to narrow down how I feel because on one hand, I feel like if you can't joke about one thing, then there's a bunch of things you can't joke about, and then it becomes unfair. It's just you need to be able to joke about everything or nothing. But on the other hand, I also hate it's really fading away, so I can't complain. But I really hate that old mentality of I can say whatever I want about this group because I know some. Like, I know some gay people, so I can make gay jokes. My brother's gay, so I can make whatever gay jokes I want. Classic. I'm friends with some black people, so I can make whatever jokes about black people I want.
Here's where I've landed with the joke thing about because I do think that you should theoretically be able to joke about any subject. I don't think that there's anything that is absolutely off the table. But what I do think that you do climb a ladder of subject matter. And as you get higher on the ladder, the risk-reward equation changes. There are topics where, like, if you make a bad joke about fast food, who gives a shit, right? Yeah. It's a bad joke. Yep. If you make a bad rape joke, you done fucked up.
Yeah.
Because, that's a subject that matters.
Right.
Fast food doesn't fucking matter. If you make a bad rape joke, if you make a bad gay joke, really if you make a bad joke about any identity that people hold dear to themselves. Yeah. Any experience that a group of people has that is not your experience. If you're joking about those subjects and you fuck it up, you are accountable in a way that you're not accountable if you make a bad joke about about airplane food. It's a lot of food stuff. Food is the lowest. Right. Food is the lowest, most relatable observational comedy.
I feel like there's that like George Carlin quote of the "You can't joke about rape. Rape's not funny. Fuck you. I think it's hilarious." Like I think that.
I don't know that joke.
Yeah, he says that you can't, and then he develops it further. Right. But that's the beginning: is you can't joke about rape. Rape's not funny. Fuck you. I think it's hilarious. And I think that in a way you should be able to approach any style of humor, but maybe it's a matter of if it's funny or not. But it's just hard. I don't know how I feel about all of the sexuality and gay jokes.
It's especially
movies.
I think the common theme of things that are really risky to make jokes about is that they involve victimization.
Right.
If you are making a joke about something that a person has been victimized by, then you risk victimizing them farther in the small, subtle ways that culture victimizes people who have been downtrodden in some way. Yeah. And if you're contributing to that, then you're a fucking asshole. And Kevin Smith has contributed to that many times with many jokes in his shitty movies. Right. Sorry, Kevin, I don't mean to be overly harsh, but you really did fuck this one up.
And even more so, it also transcends, it's not just, you made a bad joke and now you're paying the price for it. It goes beyond just, people now not willing to see your movie. It goes to the fact that, people are going to now, question your moral fiber.
Or, you're attracting the wrong type of audience as well. And you're bolstering their harmful beliefs that have actual bad effects in the world. You are contributing to actually making the world worse if you make a rape joke and you are not careful about it. Yeah. And Kevin Smith is not careful about his. I don't know if he makes any rape jokes, but his jokes that are on a similar level.
I'm sure he has made rape jokes.
Of the hierarchy. I don't want to say that he has without being right. There might be one in Mallrats. I don't know.
At risk of derailing this, the part of society that acknowledges or feels that outrage culture is a real thing.
SJWs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that. I'm ready. Ben's alt-right check-in. It always comes about an hour and a half into the podcast.
Before we get into this, can I one quick interjection is that one of the things that I completely agree with, where the you might have a joke with a certain purpose that attracts the wrong type of people. One of the kind of a random pull, but the band Minor Threat. I don't know if any of you listen to Minor Threat. They have a song. Ian MacKaye wrote a song called "Guilty of Being White," which ended up for a while becoming like a Nazi punk like anthem before. Yeah. He was like, that is so not the fucking point of what I was trying to do.
I was being straightforward. You guys are ironic.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring people together. Yeah. And I see how... I think it's important to make jokes about anything, but I hadn't really considered that angle of you might be this highbrow, like, all-inclusive, acceptable humor and draw out the wrong type of people that appreciate that.
The problem is that irony is useful for satire. Well, I don't mean to. No, you're. I don't mean to derail this even farther. But
no, it's good. If anything, you're making my point.
Irony is useful to satire, but when we live in a world where people exist in a state of irony at all times because they're literally identifying themselves as fascists, the fucking ideology that almost destroyed the Western world in the 20th century. It's impossible. They will see something that you're using ironically to try and make a point about them, and they will just adopt it. They will just incorporate it into their fucking
5 years ago,
armor.
I knew hipsters were just going to lead us down a bad path of liking things ironically.
Oh, God.
Now we don't know what's real anymore, and now we're in a fascist state.
Satire is a very dangerous game these days. You almost always have to introduce an element into it where you just play your hand. You can no longer make a satire that keeps its cards close to its vest the whole time and makes people actually think, like, what point is this making? Yep. And you have to look at the whole thing. You always have to have a part in your satire that says, like, this is satire. If you think this straightforwardly, if you genuinely believe these things, you are a bad person.
You're the dick.
You're the bad one.
And I think that's ultimately where my point was going.
Sorry to scoop you on that one.
No. You're good. We get the satire that's acknowledged when we see the store names in Mallrats. Mm-hmm. We understand that it's satire. But then, as we mentioned about carpet punching, as it were, like, that's just, like, it is heavy-handed. And, I think if people were outraged and that gained traction circa 1995 when this movie came out, I feel like the climate then, I guess, didn't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a question I have, though.
Right.
I think this is going somewhere, though.
Is it more... Does it seem fucked up now because we're more accepting of these things that are being made fun of?
We're all SJWs now?
Or has it changed because culturally now we need that label of this is satire? Yeah. Like, before, did people before recognize that it was satire so they weren't offended? Or did they just not care to be offended by something that offended the people that would have been offended by that?
To quote the not so great Tommy Lahren,
this is the first Tommy Lahren quote I've had on this show. Yeah. Probably the last, honestly. Positive one, anyway.
Quote, I'm a millennial, I don't like labels.
Yeah. Yes.
So clearly. That's why, like, when every time Ben says SJW, I'm just like, groan. Because, like, again, obviously, like, it's all about connotations now, and that's just, it's so insane.
Yeah.
The world is an incredible place.
Also,
it's incredibly bad now.
I just want to say I'm sorry for yelling so much just now. Like, I think we were in the red for a good 3 minutes straight of me just screaming. I apologize.
we get worked up. Yeah. I knew it was going to turn into...
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's just part of you now, and I accept you for that.
Is there any way you can balance that in the mix?
Nope, not with all three of us in one mic.
Oh, God.
Y'all shouldn't have invited me to Trump Town.
Okay, so how can we get back into Mallrats from there?
Was Tommy Lahren alive when Mallrats came out?
Oh my God, I don't think so. What is she, like 15?
God, I know.
She must
that's
like
a great segue, because you know what? The girl who was conducting the research
Holy shit,
in Mallrats,
right? I forcibly ejected that from my mind.
And just like having sex with people in the movie.
With 25-year-olds?
And I guess I'm the thing that I am not outraged by, but like the thing that is off-putting is more so that like they got like a 23-year-old actress to play a 15-year-old.
She looks like she's in her 40s.
So I actually looked that up.
She was 20.
She's
right?
20 during the filming of the
like,
movie.
And Brody's like, can you believe it? He's 15, man. And it's like, no, she's not.
She's a college student.
Not any pair of white knee-high socks will make me convinced that she is 15.
Why was that character written as 15?
So
there's no point for her to be 15. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, why? Why?
My big thing that reminded me of, and this actually gets into Clerks a little bit too, and I need a disclaimer here at some point. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. Disclaimer, that means jack shit. A 4-year degree in psych is nothing. You need like at least 6 or 8 to be even a real thing. So all I can say is that I've been told about a lot of experiments that have been conducted and things of that nature. So there's a profound lack of understanding about some of these things that are completely jarring for me in Kevin Smith movies in terms of Clerks, where it's written as like a joke after Caitlin sleeps with that dead guy. They're like ham-fisted. She's going to need years of therapy after this. As if we had mentioned before, like maybe that was her penance for being such an awful person. Right. But like that's such a weird, like you can't say how long or if somebody will be affected by something. Like she had like the wool blanket on, like she would fucking survived a tornado. And the other thing was, so as far as the 15-year-old, you can't sign a waiver to fucking rape somebody. You can't do that.
And this is also the point. Ben, you had said literally earlier, I'm pretty sure Kevin Smith never made a rape joke. And then you were like, well, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe in Mallrats.
And then I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like pre-age of consent is statutory rape? Is that that's the joke?
There's not a rape. There's not a rape joke in Mallrats. There's a rape essential subplot.
Yeah. It is right because that's the thing that nails
Ben Affleck,
the 15-year-old,
the fashionable man. The fashionable.
Oh, sorry.
Right. No, Shannon, the fashionable male.
Yeah,
he's totally arrested, and then that ends with a gay joke because he's in prison
and he's getting raped.
Oh my god!
There's multiple jokes.
There are multiple rape jokes in this movie, and none of them are none of them are right.
That like fucks with me is that this girl's whole pitch is that she's a 15-year-old genius. She's in college. Yeah, she's writing. She has she's writing a book. She's been given a big advance. All of this. And one of the biggest things they teach you as a psych major is when you will be conducting your experiments, which, disclaimer, I never conducted. 4-year degree means shit in psychology. They're saying you have to figure out what your variables are, and you can only change one variable at a time, because then if there's an effect, you won't know which variable affected it. Sure. So maybe this doesn't matter, and it's just me fucking picking this movie apart. But simply having sex with someone that's just, I needed a 25-year-old. That doesn't make fucking sense, because the amount of things that can be different between fucking a 27-year-old and a fucking 20-year-old is not the fact that they're 7 years apart. It's the fact that they're completely different people with completely different backgrounds and sexual preferences and everything. It's just enraging to me that that made it into the movie with such a profound lack of understanding about how any of it works.
Well, I kind of think that's what makes Kevin Smith movies maybe so bad they're good. They're the good kind of bad, because they're a pure lens into what kind of person Kevin Smith is and how he approaches the world. That dude does not know anything about science, but he was confident enough about what he knows about science.
He wrote it
to write it into his movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the fact that it is a 15-year-old girl when it does not need to be, except for getting Ben Affleck arrested at the end.
Right.
Right. I guess that.
Which is pure happenstance. She's like, wait, she's 15, and then just cops just descend.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Right, cool. That's the Kevin Spacey Baby Driver syndrome right there.
And you get the sense that Kevin Smith find something compelling about a 15-year-old fucking a bunch of older men.
And then,
you know,
and then
like you get that weird feeling.
Then it comes back to
That weird
Dante
feeling.
staring at Kevin Smith's real daughter in Clerks,
No.
and just being like,
Man. Yeah, my Megan said another great thing about this. She said in Kevin Smith, in Kevin Smith's words, as she said, if you weren't supposed to fuck 15-year-olds, why are they so hot and want it so bad?
Holy fuck.
Yeah, that's the message of Mallrats.
and scene.
Yeah.
That's the epigraph.
You guys gotta go. I can't
Right,
do this anymore.
That's Silent Bob's line.
Man,
That's his profound line.
if God didn't want us to fuck 15-year-olds, why are they so hot and they want it so bad? I don't know, man.
And then just stares directly into the camera. And just peers like just black ooze into your soul.
Yeah, I would say, okay, maybe to start wrapping it up. We've been talking for, like, again...
Yeah, we're at about hour 40.
We're at an hour 40. Maybe start wrapping it up?
Yeah.
Forgot what I was going to say. Kevin, okay, my takeaway from these movies is that they are troubling.
Yeah. I think, and I mean, I don't want to defend this.
I don't want to defend the indefensible.
I really don't, but I think that it's honestly not all Kevin Smith's fault. I think when he hear me out.
Yep, I'm ready.
When he wrote these movies, he was an edgelord in a much less culturally sensitive America than we live in 20 years later.
It's a time capsule.
It really is, and I think that if this movie came out now, I'd be like, what the fuck? But knowing that it came out circa 95, I'm like, this is not okay, this is not cool. But I feel like it's not just... He's not one monster doing this. Yeah. He is a snapshot into a society that was a little more fucked up.
He just went the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, like, he saw into the future and he went the wrong way.
Yeah.
He made every wrong decision for posterity. Like, history is not going to look kindly upon Kevin Smith's movies. He just went there, but it is valuable to have them out there so that we remember what we could have been had we gone down the wrong path as well.
Sure. I would also like to point out that while we all enjoy Tarantino films, Tarantino and Kevin Smith have a lot in common, especially by way of self-reference and perhaps, to a certain extent, lack of foresight.
I thought you were going to say the overt allusions to their sexual preferences.
Well, that also.
And fetishes.
Quentin Tarantino's so tasteful about the foot thing, and Kevin Smith holds on those breasts for so long.
With the third.
His character got to be the one that crashed into Joey Lauren Adams.
Yeah, of course he did, because he had a giant crush on her.
Yeah.
God, I know. It's horrible.
I'll give her a whole movie if she'll... like.
And then it became... brilliant. But just in terms of, like... as you described as being tasteful, there are a lot of things pertaining to, like, rape culture and... things that are otherwise triggering for a lot of people found within Tarantino movies.
Oh, the Kill Bill scene where the guy has been, like, selling her body for truckers to rape for a long time. Again, troubling. But that's he ties it into the genre thing. And the whole movie is not like that. That is specifically like a reference to really grimy Italian horror films.
I agree, yep.
So it works in that case because it's properly contextualized. I get the sense that Kevin Smith does not understand the context of anything that he's writing into his movies.
Well, I guess
I agree and disagree simply because I not having experienced that myself, I feel like, as a person who adores Kill Bill, I almost feel like if you have been a victim in that, like...
victim of rape.
In any manifestation, I would think that for a lot of people, you don't care how well it relates to this, or it's because of this. It's still got to be really hard to witness.
PTSD trigger. Yeah.
Not that I'd say you're advocating that.
But I think there's a difference between something being triggering in a piece of media, which is valid. Like people get triggered by sights, sounds, all kinds of shit. I think there's a difference between something being triggering and something being in bad taste.
Yes,
agreed.
And I think Kevin Smith is in bad taste.
Okay.
I think Quentin Tarantino approaches triggering material, but does it in good taste.
I completely agree with that.
And I think that's kind of the core difference.
My only disagreement would be the Hateful Eight.
Yeah,
I got problems with the Hateful Eight.
There's some shit in that movie.
What's your take on Hateful Eight?
I think probably it might be my least favorite Tarantino movie now.
Okay. It doesn't hold up very well upon repeat viewings.
No, it doesn't. Not remotely. It barely held up watching it for the first time and only time in the theater. So
sorry, you continue.
No, it's okay. No, it really just like Jennifer Jason Leigh's character being like savagely punched repeatedly throughout that movie, and then the way she dies, and then also like Sam Jackson just be like, "Suck my dick."
My dingus.
Oh my God.
We had a Facebook. In fact, the last Facebook exchange. No, was it? I think this might have been the last Facebook message exchange that we had before I invited you on the podcast.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was about Hateful Eight because you posted something about it and I disagreed. I think its feminist bona fides are as good as any other Quentin Tarantino movie, and I think that his feminist bona fides throughout his body of work are often underappreciated.
Sure.
I think that if they hadn't read that fucking letter after they hang Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, after they hang Daisy Domergue, then I think it would feel very different.
Sure.
But because he contextualizes it like that, it makes it... I think Hateful Eight is very different from all other Quentin Tarantino movies in tone and theme. Mm-hmm. I think it is his most challenging movie, and I don't think it lands all the time, but I appreciate that he got out of his wheelhouse and tried something different.
Sure.
Yeah. Trying to analyze that movie, you get down in the weeds really quick. I kind of like being down in those weeds. Sure. Hateful Eight made me question a lot of things that I think, and I think that was the point. Was not to make a point, but just to... I feel like Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith had never saw where culture was going. But I think Quentin Tarantino, since circa 2006, 2008, when he made Inglourious Bastards, has seen where culture was going with the neo-Nazis, with people not wanting to face like their own fucked up pasts and fucked up histories. And Hateful Eight is like a savage cry that we need to confront these things. We need to confront our hatred of women. We need to confront our racial baggage.
Right.
We need to confront all this stuff as a nation before we can move forward. Sure. And Hateful Eight is his most overt attempt to get people to just start thinking and talking about it.
Yeah.
Because no one started after Inglourious Bastards.
That is true.
You know? Inglourious Bastards is all about how the Nazis are never portrayed as they actually are in media. They're always portrayed as like a doomed, lost cause, which has caused a lot of people to look at that as an honorable thing to have been a part of. When in reality, Nazi Germany was a nation run by creeps and weirdos. And Inglourious Bastards fucking...
They really hit that on the head.
Yeah, they really... Inglourious Bastards really communicates that effectively. And now we have an entire political group that has been growing silently for the last 10 years that is composed entirely of creeps and weirdos.
You brought it back to the alt-right again, Will.
They invented ultra propaganda and they're using it to grow their ranks.
I didn't even have to bring up Tommy Lahren this time.
No, it's always in the fucking back of my mind. It's horrible.
I apologize for completely derailing away from Kevin Smith for the 18th time.
No, I apologize.
And you also thank Will for derailing.
Thank Will, and I apologize to the listeners because I think I probably put us into the red again.
It's okay.
Okay, so how are we? We were wrapping up on Mallrats. We hadn't stepped back in time to the 4-part episode.
I think I have to consider that my wrap up and step back.
Snap back to reality.
My wrap up before I have to spew my hateful things about Kevin Smith. I think that there are still reasons to show people Clerks, to watch Clerks, if only for this guy did a pretty impressive thing on his own.
For a guy with no talent, he made a pretty good movie.
There's no reason to go back and watch Mallrats. Culturally, it doesn't stand up. It's pretty offensive in a lot of ways. The subtle nods to pop culture aren't necessary because we live in a world where a new Star Wars movie comes out every year.
Fucking year.
And
maybe twice a year,
and a new
if you're unlucky.
Comic book movie comes out every 2 months. So it just doesn't need to exist. Mall culture is dead.
Malls are dead.
It came and
go to
went.
the fucking Auburn Mall and try to have a fun time. You can't.
That was a real joke for me right there.
Man, we really
Oh, this small town humor that no one is gonna fucking fly.
Dude, everyone who listens to this podcast lives within 20 square miles.
we really need a cosplay scenario happening at the Auburn Mall, and then follow it up at the Lewiston Mall.
Yeah.
Oh man, is that still open?
There's
Isn't that just
literally
a
bull moose, a rent-a-center, and a nail salon?
That's just a shell that holds a bull moose.
There's I worked at that bull moose. There's lots of mold and bad things in the back of that. Like,
that's the bull moose that needed to move.
The ceilings are all
20 years ago.
The ceilings are all black.
I imagine there's like a Hellraiser situation in the back. There's like a puzzle box that got shipped there from an unknown fucking Chinese address at some point.
I'm sure Bruce Campbell's going to come and investigate at some point, maybe.
The little known fact, you know, when you go shopping at Bull Moose and they give you the cool Bull Moose bags. Yeah. The Lewiston Mall is the Lewiston Bull Moose location has by far the biggest stock room of all the Bull Moose stores. So it is the bag store. So every Bull Moose gets their bags shipped to and from that store.
It's a bag distribution center.
It serves as a bag distribution center for other Bull Mooses. So in that mountain of bags, there are old Bull Moose trucker caps, Dead Kennedys patches, empty candy wrappers, and a Hellraiser puzzle cube. Those things all definitely exist in the mountain of bags.
Every couple months, someone goes in there and doesn't come out.
No, they throw the new bags on top of the mountain of old bags. In the core of that bag mountain, there are things that will never be seen again.
Midnight Meat Train in there.
God, I love that movie.
We're going to do a Midnight Meat Train episode. Me, Curtis, Megan, because Megan loves... That's Megan's favorite horror movie.
Oh my
also,
God.
can we please do a one-part Hellraiser about the first two Hellraiser movies?
Yeah, and then we can do a one-part about the rest of them.
I don't even think we need to...
It'll be a 5-second podcast. Yes, hello, and now goodbye.
Hello, the sucked goodbye.
Speaking of taking the wrong turn with how the future would go, when Hellraiser was like, what if we had one that took place in the internet? That was the worst mistake.
When was the last time you watched that, though?
Long time ago.
Because what if they got it right? What if that movie... Because I tell you, man, the internet's a fucking weird place now. Yep. You get on Discord, you talk to some of the fucking people, it's all creeps and weirdos. What if Hellraiser fucking nailed it and was like... like fucking Nostradamus?
1999, I think, Weird Al's Running with Scissors came out. All about the Pentiums. Pretty accurate description of the internet in 2017.
Yep.
Pretty solid.
It's all that dude.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway. Anyway, we gotta do this if we want to keep it under 2 hours, which I think is an arbitrary thing we decided. But
all right, Will, did you get to give your final thoughts on?
I'm great. This was a great time. I will continue being a Kevin Smith fan while also acknowledging flaws and acknowledging that a lot of shitty shit is present.
That's a pretty. So that's kind of your final Mallrats thoughts.
Clerks, Mallrats.
Yeah,
we're in the clear.
Ben. Final Mallrats thoughts.
I did a lot of reading about Italian futurism. It was kind of an artistic movement from the early 1900s. I did a lot of reading about that yesterday, and I think Kevin Smith makes futurist movies. Futurism was a movement that emphasized youth, violence, and speed in their art. And sometimes there were like 2 good futurist artists and a lot of terrible ones. I think Kevin Smith is one of the terrible ones. And I think that the current...
Would you call it Clockwork Orange futurist film?
No, I think it's a... Maybe it's a good futurist film. It imagines the future that the futurists foresaw. Certainly the youths of that movie are futurist inspired, and it's the same in the novel Clockwork Orange. But I think that the futurists were also the roots for the current alt-right. If you go read some of their quotes, I tell you, you can find a lot of the same shit if you go digging, being said on some YouTube channels that I'll send you guys links to later. Don't worry.
Thank you.
But yeah,
I too am curious.
So in a way, Kevin Smith can be blamed for the alt-right. In a way, in some small part. In some small part, where the counterculture, the alt-right counterculture of the modern day is partially Kevin Smith's fault.
There was some hot takes and sausage right there.
So, for me, I kind of said my final, specifically, Clerks has a place, Mallrats is completely outdated.
Mallrats is dead to culture.
Yes. As far as Kevin Smith as a whole, while I still consider myself an apologist for Kevin Smith, I feel that now, looking at his filmography, which this almost turned out to be like a multi-part every Kevin Smith film. Thank fucking God we did. These are the good ones.
If we had set out to do that, that would be canceled now. We would not be.
This show would be over.
The show would be done.
I feel that now, in 2017, when I look at his filmography, his empire has toppled, because I look at his first wave of movies. I'm not going to get specific and say like which films are in which wave. I look at his first wave of films, and say, these are characters that you like because they're archetypes of people you know, because they're such regular people.
They're broad.
They're very broad, and you know, in a simplistic way, you and I are Jay and Silent Bob, Ben. Because
we're Jay and Silent Bob. We're Dante and Randall.
Yeah, you relate to those.
We're
archetypes.
Ben Affleck and the 15-year-old.
So, yes, I'm definitely one of those. And I think that, I don't know. So this first wave of, they're good, but part of the reason they're so good is because you put a lot of your own connotations into those characters. The second wave is just him being Kevin Smith, just saying, "Hey, I got you to like these characters. Here's a sequel. Thank you." And then his third wave is just garbage that shouldn't exist and wouldn't exist if it weren't Kevin Smith, because Kevin Smith is the perfect storm of, I want to do this. Fuck no, that's a terrible idea. A, I'll do it for way less money than I said I would do it originally. B, I have a fan base that will watch anything that I do. And C, like, I fucking just, he has just this ability to, like, he will do what it takes to get it done, and including, similar to Tarantino, but in a bad way, relying on his friends to help him out over and over again, where he'll reuse actors, even to the point where the actors in his films will not come back and do sequels to films he wants to do. Brian O'Halloran and whatever Randall's fucking name is, they do not want to...
Something.
Yeah, Jeff
Anderson.
Anderson. This year, Kevin Smith did one episode of Fat Man on Batman about how this year we were supposed to get Mallrats 2, Clerks 3, and...
What?
Yeah, and what was the other fucking one that I just said? I don't remember. There was a third of it. Oh, Clerks 3, Mallrats 2. I don't know, I just said the same two.
In a different order.
And they won't happen because people don't fucking want to be in them anymore. And I think if you took a Tarantino movie and you replaced, not to take anything away from how great the actors are at portraying those roles, other actors could have done that role, and because it's a good movie.
In 50 years, I look forward to reimaginings of Tarantino scripts.
Yes, and you can view it, and it's a good movie. It holds up. People are in these movies because they're Kevin Smith's friends. And if Kevin Smith's friends wouldn't be in them, if he didn't have a diehard, weird nerd fan base that will watch anything that he'll put out, myself included, and if he wouldn't if he weren't the most compromising director of all time, saying, I'll write it and not get writer's credit, not get paid for a writer's credit. I'll do it for half the budget that I initially wanted to do it for. I'll make it work. My friend will produce it. Like, he would not have these movies. He makes so many compromises to put out bad movies that I literally can't look at his filmography anymore in the same light that I used to. I used to love his films, and now every time I watch one, I think I really like Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
But when was the last time you watched them?
I watched Jay and Silent Bob less than a year ago.
Okay.
Clerks 2, maybe a year or two ago.
All right. So all within
recently,
about a couple years.
Yeah.
All right.
I just think that he has a whole career and legacy built off of excuses and roundabout ways of making movies.
You don't sound like much of an apologist right now, Curtis.
That's a good point. But I still have them all, and I like them, and I like Kevin Smith. That's the thing, is that I'm a part of that diehard fan base, because I will listen to somebody say, what was it like working with Bruce Willis? And then be like, man, it pisses me off that we have to get a 2-hour cut of that 4-hour answer to that question, because he's a good storyteller. Right. He might not be the most complex director. He might not write the most realistic dialogue, but when he wants to tell a story, he can. Chasing Amy has a real fucking story to it. Zack and Miri is a great autobiographical take on him making Clerks. One of his Q&As where he talks about his depression after Zack and Miri bombing is one of the most enthralling stories I've ever heard a person tell about their own life, because he's very brutal to himself and his insight into why he failed as a director and a writer. He can tell a great story, but I hate that I now look at this director that I like a lot and say, wow, these are not great movies.
Sure.
That's about it.
I will interject also when I got to see Kevin Smith at Boston Comic Con. He and Jason Mewes read a part of the script for the upcoming Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the reboot.
Ooh,
yeah.
And it was kind of great.
Yeah.
It will also feature Jason Lee.
Oh, there we go.
He confirmed that, and everyone was very excited. So
he's probably the only one left that still talks to him.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Him and a drunk Johnny Depp.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
that might have been a little too heavy for my final thoughts.
No, I think that about wraps it up. I think that
was appropriate.
I think that puts a bow on it.
So next time we have decided that we will be talking about we're going topical. We're going to be discussing the new It film and also Stephen King's It, the original 1980 whatever.
The ABC. I think it was early 90s.
I think it was 1990.
1990. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ABC miniseries adaptation.
Was that? I didn't realize that whole thing.
It was 2 episodes. Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, ABC actually did a lot of Stephen King adaptations before they kind of went family friendly in the late 90s, early 2000s.
So yeah, we'll be discussing that. Thank you again, Will, for being on.
Will,
it was really
Thank
good
you for inviting me and allowing me to speak out loud about movies, which was exciting.
You're good at it.
Yeah.
Do you have any plugs? Are you working on any blogs or anything that you want to?
It's funny. So I know my buddy Gus and I, we have a blog. We have been so busy and strapped doing other things, but it's gamemechanics.blog. There's some movie reviews that I've written that are on there. The most recent one is maybe a little over 18 months old. It's been a while. But aside from that, I know I'm in the process. I just bought a fancy new microphone. It arrived in the mail today, actually. So I'm hoping to start podcasting such as yourselves. So that is cool.
Yeah, awesome. For me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. that's about it for me right now. You can subscribe to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, or stream it from Buzzsprout to listen to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts and some of the other stuff that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben still just has Facebook.
I got nothing. Yeah. I got nothing.
So I guess that's it.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Cool. Thanks.